The Fires of Spring by James A. Michener. This book is read by Larry A. McKeever. Part 1. The Poorhouse. David Harper could scarcely sit still. It was Friday afternoon, and Miss Clapp was reading from the Blue Book. For 3 weeks now she had been reading about Hector and Achilles. This afternoon Hector would go forth to battle. David, who had been a Trojan for almost a month, shivered with excitement. He knew that when Achilles met a real fighter, things would be different. Then Miss Clapp closed the book. "What happened next?" David cried. Miss Clapp smiled primly. "We'll find out next week." "Oh," David gasped. He was 11 that year, and next Friday was as far away as next year. Miss Clapp gave a self-contented smile. With her left hand she deftly tapped the pile of brown report cards. "I suppose you know why I had to stop early today," she said unctuously. Like all teachers, she savored the little climaxes that were permitted her. "Report cards," the children in grade 5 chimed. Miss Clapp smiled warmly, as if her students had mastered the multiplication table. As she called the happy litany of names, each child went forward to receive the decisive card. Returning to their seats, the children stole furtive glances at their grades. Those who were pleased smiled. "David Harper." David rose, sandy-haired, freckled, grinning. Miss Clapp handed him his card. Holding it against his badly worn shirt, he sneaked a quick glance at the grades. Doylestown Public Schools, Grade 5. English, 71. Spelling, 82. Geography, 74. Arithmetic. He gasped. There it was again, that horrible mark. Arithmetic, 99. "What's the matter, David?" Miss Clapp inquired. "Arithmetic," he blurted out, thrusting his face back toward the teacher. "What's the matter with arithmetic?" Miss Clapp asked in astonishment. "It's 99 again. I didn't miss a single question all month." "No, he didn't," the boys of grade 5 cried, egging their classmate on. Carefully, Miss Clapp placed the remaining cards on her desk. She stood very tall and folded her hands. Then, instead of growling, she smiled softly at David and said quietly, "Of course you didn't miss any questions, David, but nobody is good enough for 100. Never." "But I didn't miss any," the little boy argued stubbornly. "Of course you didn't," Miss Clapp reasoned patiently. "But 100, David. That means the very best that anyone could ever do. 99 means good, but you could do better." The incentive was lost on David. He pointed his stumpy nose at the desk and argued, "How could I get more right than all of them? How could I?" Miss Clapp ignored the boy's anger. Softly she reasoned, "Were your papers as neat as they could have been? Were your 5s made with one line? Was your pencil always sharpened?" The nose dropped to half-mast. "Oh," David grunted. "That's what you mean?" "Yes, that's what 100 means." David released a huge grin. "Good. Next month I'll do all those things, too." "And if you do," Miss Clapp said quietly, "your mark will still be 99. David gritted his teeth and stared at his teacher. He was mad, fighting mad. He wished he knew 1,000 swear words. Abruptly, he went to his seat and shook his head at Harry Mumaw. "Teachers are crazy," he whispered, "especially Miss Clapp." The teacher heard this, but ignored it. "Gracie Kelly," she called. A thin, scrawny girl with red spots on her face rose from the back of the room. She lived in Worthington's Alley and was almost always dirty. But when she passed David on this day, he saw that she was wearing a pretty red dress. She swung her way up the aisle and received her card. Clutching it in her hand, she smiled bravely at the rest of the children. Her marks were poor, but she didn't care. She had on a good dress. But from the second row, another little girl said in a loud whisper, "That used to be Mary Gray's dress." Right away, David remembered. Of course it was Mary's old dress. But the whisper was so loud that Gracie Kelly heard it too. The bitter words struck her in the face and in the heart. Dropping her report card, she threw her long arms over her face and broke into impulsive sobbing. Miss Clapp, unaware of what had happened, left her desk and tried to comfort Gracie. "Don't cry," she pleaded. "You'll get better marks next month." Gracie Kelly turned away. "It's my dress," she wept. One of the boys laughed nervously, and she swung on the class, her eyes deep with hate. "I hate you all," she screamed. Then she slapped Miss Clapp's hands away and rushed into the cloakroom. David could hear her sobbing there and kicking at the wall. Miss Clapp hurried after her, and when the teacher came back to the room, she was crying too. Seeing this, the little girl whose cruel whisper had launched the trouble also began to cry. David leaned over and whispered to his friend Harry Mumaw, "I told you Miss Clapp was nuts." "Women are funny," Harry agreed. "What's the matter with Gracie Kelly?" David demanded. "All that fuss about a dress. Everybody knows I wear your second-hand clothes, so what?" The two good friends shrugged their shoulders, but David was disturbed, for from the cloakroom came the inconsolable sobbing of a heartbroken girl. The poorhouse lay 3 miles south of Doylestown, among the wonderful rolling hills of Bucks County. Hunched up in back of the poorhouse truck, David watched the familiar sights as he sped homeward. Down the long hill, out of town, past the fine winding bridge at Edison, then up a hill, through some woods, and there before him were the 2 long gray buildings of the poorhouse. To David, these bleak stone buildings were not the last stop of the world's defeated. Not at all. For nearly a month they had been the walls of Troy, and would be for 3 more searching weeks. Then, although David did not yet know it, the poorhouse walls would become the home of Lancelot. Later, Oliver Twist would live there. Indeed, it was more fun living in a poorhouse than almost any kind of place you could imagine. But right now, David was worried. Because if the poorhouse was truly his castle, he now had the unpleasant job of visiting the witch that lived in the dungeon. As long as he could remember, he had lived at the poorhouse with his Aunt Reba. She was in charge of the women's building, and long ago she had brought David to the 2 forbidding buildings. His parents were dead. "No better than they should have been," his aunt said, and he had come to live with the ugly, unloving witch. Gingerly, he edged his way into the women's building. The air was hot, smelly with the strong juice they use for keeping bedbugs under control. A very old woman in blue and white denim winked at David and shrugged her shoulder toward Aunt Reba's door. "She's in there," the old woman said, with pleased and obvious loathing. David took a deep breath.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?